Well, there's no going back now because the
Thunderdome.
Wait, there's a problem with the Thunderdome voice. What do you mean, what do I mean? Like, when I say Thunderdome, it's got to sound all deep and angry and aggressive because they're flipping Thunderdome, and at the moment I sound like a stupid chipmunk. Just fix it. All right, excuse me, sorry about that. But it's all about the Thunderdome. There you go, oh, rage. Which has finally debuted on SmackDown, and of course, right away on the internet, it is dividing people right down the middle. But don't worry, we're gonna talk about it. But before we get there, we have to take the finger up pound. We have to give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down for a brand new era of WWE. And if you're more interested in an old era, don't forget to go watch retro ups and downs from yesterday. We did SummerSlam 2013, because of course it is SummerSlam weekend. Enough from this bald idiot, let's up those downs. SmackDown did indeed start off by making you think that the Thunderdome I'm talking about is the greatest thing in the history of the world. Now, it did look a little bit like a bag of Skittles had thrown up over my face, but I'm just going to break it right down here. I didn't realise how claustrophobic the Performance Centre was. This was bright and colourful and exciting. I like it. I'm a fan. There are still a few kinks they need to work out, especially when it comes to the crowd noise. I think WWE is still pumping it in, so just like blowing it in some holes. And that didn't really equate to what we were seeing in the ring, but I will give them time. I'm not gonna be a negative Nancy. We then even had Vince McMahon in the ring, and I can't believe I have to do this. I'm a little bit worried. I'll apologize right now. I'm sorry, Mr. CEO, boss man, billionaire. But hello, my name is Simon Miller and welcome to another episode of Nobody Talks Like This. Devastatingly this week, featuring none other than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. But when he had a microphone in his hand, he said, "Nobody brings the thunder like WWE, and that's why this Sunday at SummerSlam, you'll never see it coming." Vince, that doesn't make any sense. You just took a bunch of words, sentences, and taglines and pushed them together. Just because you come up with some fancy pants catchphrase doesn't mean you can just say it on a whim. I'm sorry, Vince McMahon. My word, what has the world come to? 2020, kiss my ass. But nobody talks like that. I never thought I'd see the day. I never ever thought I'd see the day. But yeah, you can't just start throwing all these things together randomly. Otherwise, you may as well come up to me in the street and go, "Miller, what did you think of that last WWE show?" And I go, "Foot." Flubbing idiot. This is all kind of irrelevant though, and I can't believe I didn't call this beforehand, because all day long WWE social media had been crapping out the fact that Vincent Kennedy McMahon was going to appear on SmackDown, and he was barely talking for 20 seconds when the lights went all crazy and out came the Fiend. And this is when I started to love the Thunderdome because his entrance looked badass. We also now learned that one of Bray Wyatt's magical powers is that he can control the LED screens because they went all off during his entrance. Although saying that, I think that may have been the case for every single entrance, but I prefer my story better. Sadly, we didn't get to see anything here because I would have been all in for the Fiend taking his fingers and just sticking them down Vince McMahon's throat. And that sounds terrible out of context because in seconds, Braun Strowman was also out here and he was staring at the Fiend and the Fiend was staring at him and just like, "Oh, I hate you so much." And the Fiend was like, "Oh, I don't say anything, but trust me, I hate you too." And in all this fracas, Vince McMahon just disappeared. Maybe he fell down a hole. And then if you can believe it, they then got interrupted by Retribution. And Michael Cole ruined this straight away by going, "Oh, it's the group that calls themselves Retribution." And again, nobody strings sentences like that together. It's just really annoying. But I was a bit like, okay. I mean, if they are going to get involved once again, you may as well go after the top guys. They beat up Drew McIntyre and Raw. And here, yeah, they beat up Braun Strowman. And if you're wondering why they didn't break up the Fiend, he's too smart. He used his teleportation powers to get away. That's actually what happened. At that point, Braun pulled a face like he left the oven on, like he was all... because he was meant to be surprised that Bray Wyatt had disappeared, and yeah, Retribution got in the ring and they started to whoop him right down. Sooner or later, the SmackDown locker room emptied like, "Oh no, Retribution," and they chased them off. But this is better. Attack the damn wrestlers. There was also a little wrinkle in the story here that did get me kind of intrigued because despite everybody running out here, The Miz only arrived when Retribution had been chased off, and that is the second week in a row he's been doing some odd shenanigans. I think maybe he's behind it, or I don't know. It's interesting. Strowman lost his rag after all of this and he beat up Drew Gulak and Jey Uso, so now you know where they are in the WWE hierarchy, and if you're not keeping up with this, it is damn low. And yeah, it was a little bit lame because Retribution still need to, I don't know, probably kill a guy like I've said before, but they just did attack the Universal Champion. That is an improvement. And yeah, fair enough, given that it was the debut of the Thunderdome, maybe we could have done something a little bit bigger. It was alright, it was fine, I enjoyed it for what it was. And then it was Sheamus versus Big E. I would have thought we'd save that for the pay-per-view, but I guess we need something Big E for SmackDown. And yeah, they just had a good old fun fashion match up. The hundreds of digital fan faces then returned and I got a bit all iRobot here. I was like, Will Smith, like, oh my God, I'm gonna be attacked. And this is where the weird crowd noise was weird. I just made that apparent, but whatever. But I still think it made the atmosphere so much better. The roster hung around ringside to ensure that Retribution didn't come back out. But then the lights started flickering. Please, we've got to stop doing that. It is so crap. It doesn't make me go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It makes you think they're in the back going, and just flicking a light switch. It doesn't piss me off, it just annoys me. Like if my lights start to go, I'll be like, oh great, now I gotta go to that flipping store. And as much as I did enjoy this match too, boy howdy did WWE have to remind you what you were watching. But because Baron Corbin was on the outside and so was Matt Riddle, at one point the King went, oh, I'm just going to attack the bro, which he did, and this stunned Sheamus so much he couldn't believe that two people would have a fight when he was having a match. He turned his back on Big E because he was distracted. No, wait, where's my sign? I've lost it, damn it. Anyway, he was distracted and he got rolled up using the most devastating move in all of WWE, the surprise roll-up. I got that wrong with my mouth, but I'm just so disgusted is, of course, getting it down. So that's it now. That is what we are doing. We are combining finish 1 and finish 2 to create finish 12, I suppose, which is distraction, roll-up, finish. Bring it down. There's my counter. Do not forget it's only been going since March 2020. I didn't even do the months prior. It is 63. 63 of these. I'll be dead before that age because my heart won't be able to take this. It also doesn't help my man Big E. And I love Big E. I think he's the greatest thing ever. And I stand by the fact that I think he should be Universal Champion before the end of the year. But although he got a victory here, he didn't really win, did he? Win. I can't even get my grammar right, I'm so mad. But he didn't really win. It was just a fluke. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin would never have done this on his big build. And they're like, well, fine, man. Big E's never gonna be as popular as Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, how the hell will we ever know if we don't treat him right? We're supposed to be on the Big E boat here, floating to Universal Title Town. We can't do that with surprise roll-ups. Not actually that mad about it, but it is ridiculous. We zoomed to the back after this and Jeff Hardy was in the trainer's room because somebody had hurt his knee. And who the hell would want to do that to someone like Jeff Hardy? But thankfully the doctor dude was like, I think you're going to be okay. And Jeff was like, but I'm in so much pain. Poor Jeff Hardy. This had kind of happened twice because after discussing somebody getting attacked, we saw Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura beat the living hell out of the Lucha House Party. They then stood over them and laughed. They're like we're villains from a comic book, like, I was like, all right, yeah, get them. Surprisingly, we then got that match too. So what do I know? Absolutely nothing, because I predicted it was going to be on SummerSlam. But yeah, it was a SmackDown Tag Team Champion, Cesaro and Nakamura, taking on the Lucha House Party, and of course, the Lucha House Party lost. It was all right. Up. There was this one really annoying bit where we cut backstage to a picture-in-picture promo with The Miz and John Morrison, but when they were talking, Michael Cole and Corey Graves kept doing commentary, so that was really annoying. That was Ghostbusters crossing the streams, and let's never do that again. But back in the ring, things were much better, because Vince Dorado did 3 moonsaults in a row on Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro broke it up at the last second. I was having fun. And of course, the big issue here was that nobody in their right mind actually believed the Lucha House Party were going to get their hands raised. I bet if we had done an interview beforehand with them, even they would have gone, well, it's very, very unlikely, but look, our names are down on this sheet, so we'll go out there and do our best. But you will not believe the finish. Because after Dorado had tried to roll up the Swiss Superman, he realized what was going on, and he reversed it to use the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, and he got the 1, 2, 3. It was so surprising to me, I glued my hands to my head, and look, now I've got to touch my bald, stupid skull for the rest of my life. Does nobody read the rundown for Raw and go, SmackDown, and go, wait a minute, we've already done surprise roll-ups, and I'm going to stop doing this. And they're like, obviously not. Go listen to Talk is Jericho. Find the Talk is Jericho podcast when he is going through the early years of his WWE career, and even he says sometimes he fell out with agents because they were like, well, why don't you just win with a surprise roll-up? And even Le Champion will go, but there's already 64 roll-ups on this show. This was back in 2001. Why is it still going on now? It gets it down. Once again, I'm not that mad. Secretly really mad. I'm also Flabbergasted Fred. That's my new name. You can call me Flabbergasted Fred. Bring it down. It's the Flabbergasted Fred Surprise Roll-Up Board 64. 64. Dorado and Kalisto fell out afterwards and Grandmother Metalik wasn't able to calm them down. So that's the end of them. What a crappy party it was. There was a really cool piece of footage after this and it all turned into Jeff Hardy's knee. That's a weird thing to say, but it's absolutely true, because we discovered what had gone on. And earlier in the night, when Retribution were attacking and all the SmackDown guys were out there trying to see them off, AJ Styles saw his opportunity and he just whammed Jeff Hardy right in his leg. And that's awesome because one, like I say, it's a cool little thing that maybe you did see and maybe you didn't, but two, it just sums up AJ Styles' character perfectly. He is a dick. AJ even mocked Jeff Hardy after this during an interview saying, well, he should have seen it coming, what a doofus. And then him, Sasha Banks and Bayley all got together and basically had this massive love-in. They were like, you're great. And he's like, no, you're great. You're the best. All these three are so annoying in the best possible way. Then things got a little bit weird because we had another interview with Kayla Braxton and Mandy Rose. And Mandy Rose was like, look, I want to try and stop my match with Sonya Deville at SummerSlam because I'd rather be friends. And at first I was like, okay, well, you know, some terrible things happened with Sonya Deville in her personal life after the last few days. So if she doesn't want to wrestle, I would totally understand. But then we got more of this later on. So I guess we'll discuss it then. Sasha Banks and Bayley were then out to the ring properly and they were being interviewed by Corey Graves. And that man, that little swiveling snake, he was trying to wind them up here by going, are you really friends? Or are you trying to screw her over? Or are you trying to screw her over? Because Bayley, last week you were all like, oh, I should fight Asuka second, coming up with the idea that whoever does go round 2 with Asuka at SummerSlam probably has the easier match, because of course she will have already fought. This kind of did drive a wedge between the Golden Role models, especially with Sasha. She was wound up, and then they got interrupted by Naomi. She challenged both of them to a match, which of course Banks and Bayley laughed at because they were like, you can't beat us both at the same time. So Corey Graves, the commentator of SmackDown, went, well, I've got an idea. Why don't we do a beat the clock challenge thingy-majig, and whoever beats Naomi quicker then has to challenge Asuka second at SummerSlam, so have the advantage. I said, wait, what the flub is going on? Who has given him powers of booking? Why is he deciding matches? Then, of course, I went and figured it out. It was me, I did it, the wizard in the sky, the person who is secretly making all the decisions in World Wrestling Entertainment. And the reason I did it is because I just love Corey Graves. I love all the little quips and remarks he makes on commentary, and his After the Bell podcast is absolutely fabulous. So this morning I woke up and I went, kazam! And I made him the decision maker in WWE. I've now revoked those powers. Halaboo! It's back to me. But Corey Graves, you keep doing a spiffing job. So says me, the wizard in the sky. Oh, right, fine. Yeah, I can get behind that. A persona I made up that's a character that lives in the clouds actually made more sense than this. Great. Poor Naomi too, because she just got led out here to be killed, or at least that was the case at first. And yes, whoever got the best time was going to take on Asuka second, which was a little bit strange because I thought we'd established that last week, but she did eventually get trapped in the bank statement and she tapped out. I don't understand why we had to do this to poor Naomi, so at this point, it's getting her down. Although what I did like, even though a lot of the people on the internet say otherwise, is that when she went to take on Bayley, she actually won. But the reason I got a massive kick out of it is because, yeah, when you look at it and just hear it in this sense, you're like, wait a minute, why would Naomi win the second match after she had lost the first one? She should be more tired, which means she's more susceptible to being beat. Well, it's because Bayley was being such a knob and she was being so arrogant that she brought this on herself. So Naomi did give her the rear view. she was able to pin her for the 1, 2, 3, which means at SummerSlam, Sasha Banks now gets to go second against Asuka. But again, the reason I like this is because I can already see what's going to happen. Bayley will retain against Asuka this Sunday after help from Sasha Banks, but later on, Bayley will then try and repay the favor. She will screw up, maybe even intentionally. Sasha will lose her championship, and then this story has reached another level. That to me sounds pretty damn good, and it's why it's getting it up. Asuka then came out laughing like a mad woman because she's like, I'm gonna win all the titles at SummerSlam. Again, she sounded a bit like a comic book villain too, but I just love her, and she's such a badass because she then went and whipped everybody's ass. But there was also something else here because Bayley could have helped Sasha Banks at one point, but she didn't because she wanted to save her own skin. This story just has so many nice little touches. Even when they do make little bit hiccups, they always come out the other side smelling of flowers. Sonya Deville was then here to sort all this bizarreness out, and you thought I was gonna give it down given what I said earlier, didn't you? No, I'm not. It's getting it up. I mean, it made Mandy Rose look a little bit dumb because she was all like, oh, Sonya, my friend, please, let's just be buddies again. But Sonya, she wasn't into that at all because not only did she slap Dana Brooke when Dana Brooke was just trying to be nice backstage, when she did come out to the R World, she was like, look, Mandy Rose, I don't give a crap about our friendship. I don't care about you. I think you're suck. And also, I don't even care if somehow you could beat me and I'd have to shave my head. So let's raise the stakes. Now, not only is it going to be no disqualification, but also the loser has to leave WWE. Ooh, lally. And this is kind of a little bit off because when you do see somebody get their head shaved, you want to enjoy the weeks of TV that follows going, that person's got no hair. In fact, I retract that statement. I don't mean it at all. But I'm going to guess that Sonya Deville probably does need some downtime, given that someone tried to flip and stalk her in her house. It's the worst story ever. Do not be insane, people. It is absolutely crazy. And this just adds more gravitas to it. So it's all fine. We then were having a big chat with Nikki Cross in the back. And what has happened? What has happened? Because she was all like, I am worried about Alexa Bliss. Alexa is not the same person she used to be. She used to be all warm and lovely, and now she's cold and horrible. Well, I tell you what happened to her. You happened to her. You pushed her down, and that caused all of this. I thought Nikki Cross was going to become Crazy Nikki, or Nuts Nikki. That would have been better. Crazy Cross, there you go. There's the ones we should go with. But now it's apparently Alexa Bliss is going off the rails. This one don't make any sense to me. She also thinks something terrible is going to happen at SummerSlam, and I was like, yeah, it's called the match that's going to feature The Fiend versus Braun Strowman. It was just a joke. I'm sure it'll be fine. It was then time for Styles versus Hardy for the Intercontinental Championship, and I can only figure out that WWE wanted to have something pretty darn big for the Thunderdome because Jeff Hardy is your new Intercontinental Champion. But I tell you, this was all right up. Daniel Bryan appeared via Zoom, which we've got to stop doing because it's just absolutely ridiculous. And this, of course, all focused around Jeff Hardy's knee that AJ Styles had injured earlier because he was just going after it and waylaying it and stomping on it and punching it. And at one point, he even removed the knee brace just so he could cause more damage. AJ Styles, you were dragged up and your parents are ashamed of you. Otherwise, this was just really fun. Jeff kept going back to his high-flying offense to try and get an advantage, but that just made his knee even worse, and his leg was so bad at one point, I even sat there on my sofa and I was like, does he even have a knee anymore? And what does that mean? It was a great plot device though, especially when Styles locked in the calf crusher, which is basically a leg move, because I was like, well, that's it. There's nothing Jeff Hardy can do now, although he was able to get to the ropes. So Styles went, well, screw this. I'm just gonna Styles clash his ass. What? In all this fracas though, with a man being turned upside down, Hardy's knee brace collided with AJ Styles' head. Now, was this on purpose or was this an accident? We don't know, but it knocked Styles so silly that Hardy was able to hit the twist of fate. Hardy was able to hit the Swanton Bomb. He got the 1, 2, 3, and yes, brand new IC champ. Pretty well put together, I thought, and AJ has all the reason to be pissed off because of what happened, but don't forget, folks, we have a pay-per-view in 1 week's time called Payback. He's obviously going to get the championship title back. Hardy was overjoyed after this as he was being interviewed, and he also said that now his personal demons and battles are over, so I guess the message was, if you want to get over your own personal demons, win the Intercontinental Championship. We can't really do that, Jeff. That requires a lot of movements to be had. And also, somebody in the back obviously thought Jeff Hardy had gone too long, because as he was talking, they played his music and they just cut him off. That sucked. AJ was also flipping great in the back as well, as he just yelled at Joseph Park saying, well, look, Your phenomenal intercontinental statistics system didn't help me at all, and I blame you. He was also like, look at my head where the knee brace hit him. I love those two together, and I love AJ Styles. Okay, right, this is going to be tough. But if you do enjoy nonsense in your professional wrestling, well, it's about to make love to your face. Don't thrust. And I will also be the first to say that I haven't been the biggest fan of the Braun Strowman Fiend feud. If you try and explain it to people, it's actually really complicated, which should never be the way. But here WWE decided, well, look, if we are going to go super crazy town, we may as well double down on that and go all in. It's what they did, and it's why the following is getting it up. Don't get me wrong, it was absolutely gibberish, and if you were rolling your eyes the whole time, I would understand. It all began with the Firefly Funhouse, and the puppets were there, and Bray Wyatt was talking to a glove, because that's what happened. Although I will say, when Ramblin' Rabbit and that pig thing were reenacting everything between Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss, which is what they did, was kind of funny. I chuckled. At one point though, Bray turned to the camera and he said, "What took you so long?" So I presumed that he was talking about WWE finally moving into the Thunderdome, but no, he was addressing Braun Strowman, who was somehow in the Firefly Funhouse. Now, again, this got way silly because Michael Cole and Corey Graves were like, "Oh, how did Braun Strowman get in the Firefly Funhouse? Because we tried to find the door one day, but we couldn't find the door, and then Corey let us know it's because it's in an alternative dimension." These are things that happen. Small piece of trivia for you though, at one point way back in the day when it was the WWF, Vince McMahon Sr. actually pitched this to Bruno Sammartino. He pitched in the same story. Of course that didn't happen. Could you imagine if you went up to Bruno Sammartino and said, right, we're gonna transport you to an alternative dimension where some serial killer is gonna try and beat you up with his puppets? He would have punched you in the face. Anyway, the pair then transported themselves to our usual backstage view, which we're used to, and when they got to this ledge, Braun Strowman grabbed Bray Wyatt and he just pushed him off and essentially killed him. I mean, Michael Cole was all like, oh, maybe he's knocked unconscious. I was like, no, Michael Cole, if somebody throws you from a great height onto concrete, your worry should be that they're dead. A bunch of officials ran out because they were terrified this had happened, and of course an ambulance was brought to take him to a local medical facility, and I bet Braun Strowman was basically, well, creaming in his pants here, because you know Braun Strowman and ambulances, he would have been like, oh, I'm gonna turn it over. But he didn't, he just walked off. Also, regret what I just said, Mum, I'm sorry. Then, however, the medical facility wagon stopped and started to reverse, and this was unintentionally comical, as you did have a bunch of dudes going, you're going the wrong way, turn around, but soon it became obvious what was happening, because all the lights in the local medical facility wagon went all red, and when we cut back to it, who was standing there but none other than the Fiend? He had transformed in the ambulance and become this guy, which meant now any injuries he had, gone away. Wrestling. Now here's my take on this because it is twofold. One, this looked absolutely great, again, if you're into the silliness of it all, as you had this cool lighting with the Fiend standing there going, but why has he started sticking his tongue out? I hate this. Every time we see him now, he just goes, blah, and he sticks it out of his mouth. This used to annoy me back in the day when The Undertaker started to do it. When he used to pin people with his dead pin or whatever and roll his eyes back and go, but what are you sticking your tongue out for? Are you hoping somebody puts an ice cream in your mouth and you can go and lick it and have some sugary goodness? Because that is not going to happen, and if it does, that will be even odder than what we had just seen. So taking that away, it was a good visual, and I guess if you're into all the hocus pocus spooky magic stuff, it would get you pumped for SummerSlam. I just like that they came up with the idea and they didn't hold back. If you were going to dive into this stuff, you need to throw yourself in there, as I always say, like Scrooge McDuck and his money, and they did do that. So fair play to them. Which brought us to the end of SmackDown and the go-home show, the major go-home show for SummerSlam, and I thought it was okay. I like the Thunderdome, that made me enjoy the wrestling more, but it wasn't all good, but most of it was good, and therefore it can get an up. Well, they're saying that, it's probably average, but still, positive Pete. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of SmackDown. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments. Said that, share, do whatever, I don't care. Then head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here, including retro ups and downs. Support the love on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. If you enjoy ups and downs, that's very good, because tomorrow I'll ups and downs NXT TakeOver 30, I'll ups and downs AEW Dynamite, and then I'll be back to ups and downs SummerSlam on Monday, and then Raw on Tuesday, and only then will I allow myself to be killed. Don't know how that ties in, but I'll see ya throughout all of that.